Hey YouTube, it's Micah Meyer with Travel Beyond Convention. I'm about 3 weeks into my road trip and on the road at the moment as I launched my journey on April 29th, 2016. So far things have been a little crazy. I definitely underestimated the amount of time and energy it would take to wrap up my jobs, along with figuring out stuff like health insurance and car registration and all of those things that you have to do when you move somewhere, and especially when you move your life into a cargo van. And you're also probably wondering why I'm wearing a sweater. That's because it's been raining in Washington, D.C. since I launched my trip. 3 days before my trip, to be exact, it was a record 15 days of consecutive rain in the Washington, D.C. area, which has made working on the van and visiting park units a little wet. But there's been lots of exciting stuff happening. I was so thrilled to have the Washington Post send a reporter to join me on April 29th to do my first unit at the Washington Monument. Julie, who you can see in this photo here, spent about 2.5 hours with me talking about my backstory and the trip that I'm doing, and then she joined me for my very first unit at the Washington Monument, which was really fun. That article was published the first week of May, and some really fun stuff has happened since then. Stuff.co.nz, New Zealand's CNN, to quote a friend of mine who's a Kiwi, reran the article in their news source. And also a gay magazine from Berlin, Germany contacted me and asked if they could use me as their inside cover photo for their magazine, their nature issue. I also was reached out to by Lutheran magazine, ELCA Lutheran magazine, called Living Lutheran, who's going to do a profile coming soon. And probably the most exciting thing is that Voice of America, which is the U.S. federal government's news agency, got a hold of me and said they would like to cover my journey. So we did a video shoot where I talked about the broad pieces of my journey and what I'll be doing, what I hope to be doing, and that video will be coming out soon. Voice of America translates their stories into 45 different languages and sends it around the world. So I'm really looking forward to hearing my story in Swahili. On April 29th, the National Park Foundation also did a really fun Q&A with me, which they posted on their website, nationalparks.org, if you want to check that out. You can find links to all of these interviews and all of these stories on my website, tbcmicah.com, on the homepage. If you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll find the logo of the organization along with a link to the story. I've also put all the links in the description of this video if you'd like to follow it there. So aside from launch day with the Washington Post at the Washington Monument, I've also visited 7 units since we last spoke on YouTube. I did the Washington Monument as my first unit, followed by the Jefferson Memorial, and then Ford's Theater was number 3, the World War II Memorial was number 4, the FDR Memorial was number 5, number 6 was the MLK Memorial, and then number 7 was Greenbelt Park, which was my first unit outside of DC proper. That's in a suburb in Maryland. You can read all these blogs currently on the TBCMIKAH, that's tbcmicah.com website. They are all up with photos and stories from my experience at each, and every blog has 5 things you can do, 5 highlights that I recommend you could try if you want to get out and find your park, as the National Park Service says, and experience these for yourself. Apart from preparing to move and visiting units, I've also been working on my cargo van some more. You'll see some pictures here from the last video I made. A huge shout out to my architect, Kevin Wiley, who is based in Fairfax County, who really took over once I finished the installation, and he's been going to town on the interior, building a rib structure so we can put up walls, and working on the floors, and we're going to put in a bed. And so there's lots of exciting stuff to come, but I need to give a huge thank you and a big shout out to Kevin Wiley and all the work that he's been putting into this. It's been a really great help. I couldn't do it without him. Also, a huge shout out to Eugene, Oregon-based Grape Solar, who I'm now an ambassador for. They provided me a bunch of solar panels and a charge controller, and will be helping me have power to charge my fridge and laptop and phones off-grid all across the United States. Also, over the past few weeks, I've noticed a number of frequently asked questions which have arisen. So I made a blog which addresses a number of these. You can check it out on tbcmicah.com/blog. It's just little questions such as, how is Micah funding this trip? Or is he another lazy millennial that wants a handout? Or he's white. How is that diverse? And you've probably been wondering about this for sale sign above my shoulder here. So I am getting rid of my Hyundai Elantra, which I've had since I was 19. I inherited it from my dad when he passed. I actually asked him before he passed away if I could use his car for my very first ever road trip, because my 1989 4-speed Ford Festiva, which 3 of my friends picked up by hand at one point. They know who they are and they'll be proud when they see this. I did not trust taking that into the upper Midwest, so I asked my dad if I could borrow his Hyundai Elantra, and he gave me permission, and then my best friend Tom and I ended up taking my first ever real adult road trip 10 days after his funeral in that Hyundai Elantra. So since I'll be moving into Vanny McVan face, my cargo van, it is time to let the Elantra go. I have not cried yet, but it might be a tough goodbye. So if you or someone in the Washington, D.C. area who you know is looking for a good little trusty car, it still runs great. It's been such a trooper for me all these years. I am selling it, so message me on my website, tbcmicah.com, on the contact form. If I can find it a good home with a caring owner, that would make me really happy. Also, I'm going to try to leave you on each video with one blog that I really think you should check out. So for this week, I'm going to go ahead and suggest Ford's Theater. I had a really amazing experience at this unit. A contact who I knew from Nebraska actually works for Ford's Theater, and she was able to set me and my boyfriend up with 2 tickets so we could do the tour and then see a show that night, which was a really great experience. And speaking of my boyfriend, you might have read in the Washington Post story that he is considering coming along on the journey with me. You can stay tuned to find out about that. And as always, I can't do this trip without you, so if you feel so inclined to support, please go to tbcmicah.com/support. On my website, there's a number of ways you can help. You can donate directly via PayPal, or you can also shop. I now have partnerships with a few businesses. One is Unwind Candles, who you might have read about in the Washington Post story, or whose logo you might have seen on the side of my van. They are working with me. 40% of every candle sold using my discount code TBCMICAH, TBCMIKAH, will go directly towards paying off what I owe them on the van. I also have an exciting partnership coming up with the DC Capital Candy Jar, which I'll be explaining more about in the future. And as always, if you just want to support by subscribing, that would be a huge help as well. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links are on my website or in the description below. So thanks for watching my video, and I look forward to seeing you on the road.